Hi, everyone. This is Christina Rahm, and this is Courtney Kivela.
Hi.
And she's amazing. I'm so excited. I just met her recently, and I was so excited to meet both of you guys. I really was, because I am in Nashville, but we shared this. We've both worked and traveled and lived all over the world. Mm-hmm. And so it was great to know that you're here because I didn't know until the event we had at the house. So thank you for being at my house and for us starting this connection. I love meeting women on this journey that I can be friends with. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much oh my goodness. I was saying earlier, just walking into the doors of your house your event, like a week and a half ago, I was about to say last week, it was kind of like, bumbling in, and then all of a sudden it was like, whoa, okay, hold on. This is special. And then we met you, and yeah.
The fact that you liked it made me happy because I remember when I bought that house, I've actually had a couple of houses in the Governor's Club in that same neighborhood, and I gutted, both of them because of the travel and what I've been exposed to. I think the more you're exposed to, the more you love. And my mother, I grew up in a small town, so I also like country things. I really do. I like different styles, but for me, I'm eclectic, and I needed to bring it in. So thank you. That made me happy when you're like, oh, I really like this. And I thought she must have been in Italy a lot or London or something.
I mean, well, you can tell you have so many stories to tell. Just walking in to just one room, honestly, and not even through it. And so I don't see how you could have a house that would be any different.
And you go in the living room, there's a sound drum that is from Syria. If people really looked at the room, most of the stuff is not from, unless they're my kids' pictures or my kids' pottery or my mother's paintings or my great-grandmother's piano. Most of it's from other countries, really.
It's amazing. I could see that. It was, oh my gosh. I love your style and taste and
thank you.
Your mission and wow.
It's a mission, and I have to say this. So my closest friends in my life have been creatives. Mm-hmm. They have been in marketing or creative design or art or fashion. And if you ask me why, it's because my mother was a classical pianist and cellist, and I was an artist. And that's what I relate to. I love people, too, that are structured because they bring balance to me. Mm-hmm. And I'm a Libra, so I like the balance.
Yes,
Yeah, but I loved meeting you. And then when I heard your story and what you've done and just your casual attitude, it was great because you've seen a lot, too.
I have. I have.
Tell us about you.
I
really want to know a little bit about where you came from and your background and then your career because your career is fascinating to me. I didn't say this to you, but that was one of the areas because, we have a fashion brand. Yes. And I always say to people, it was never a dream of mine to work on a fashion brand. I'm really a fashion engineer because I do bioscience engineering into the brand. Mm-hmm. But it was one of my dreams to work for a magazine because my sister, when we were little, she would rip up pages of what she wanted her house to look like at her wedding and her children, how she wanted them to dress. And meanwhile, I'm ripping out pages from National Geographic or Glamour. And I remember one day of what I want to look like. And I'm in this small town of 5,000 to 6,000 people.
Amazing.
And I was in the car one day, and it was during a period because, I think it was the year of 1987. Okay. And I'm wearing dark eyeshadow. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to look like Madonna.
Yes, I know, yeah.
I'm trying to I had watched Pretty in Pink. I forgot what. And my sister turned around. She goes, "You are so embarrassing." Because I didn't look like that town. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And I looked like a magazine out of Glamour.
I love that.
Because I was pulling pages, and I didn't care that I looked like the town because I thought this is more exciting to me. Although I respected that. I remember thinking, I wish maybe I was a little bit normal. And I had an amazing sister. But you got to work for a couple of the magazines that were, as a kid, things that I thought I would love to, because I love to write, and I love to write about other people and what they're doing. So you've gotten to do that.
I have. I feel very fortunate. I mean, with my whole life, honestly, and even, the dips and the, I have no regrets. They're only lessons as far as, I'll ever think And so, but it all kind of began when I was little. I always wanted to be a fashion designer. And
You did.
I always wanted to, I wanted to be a designer, and I had this mission that I was going to, have 3 kids and a fashion empire by the time I was 30. And clearly, in a different direction, which is all good.
And I had a dream that I was not going to have kids. And I was never going to get married. And I've talked to, Marty's heard me say this a couple times on podcasts. I was going to adopt kids. The other thing I wanted to do is be Mother Teresa, because I really, and actually something's getting ready to happen this year that's it's so odd. I was a little kid. I would study Gandhi and Mother Teresa, and I wasn't Hindu and I wasn't Catholic, but I wanted to be like them.
Yeah.
And then my other side, because creatives are wanted to do magazines. So you wanted to be a fashion designer.
I always wanted to be a fashion designer, and my father was the one who always took us for like school shopping twice a year, and I would be the one in like the purple pleather pants and in second and third grade, and I remember having these clogs that my teacher would always be like, "You're gonna break your neck," and nobody else was dressing like that. I just kind of was marching to my own band, I guess, or whatever you want to call it. But and so he was always kind of he always backed us up with everything. And so, and then fast forward, so my father used to design cameras for Kodak.
Oh, wow.
And
so he was a designer in a different way.
He was, yes. He he led the team for the disc camera, which was the precursor for the digital camera, but obviously, didn't last that long. And so we were transferred to Hong Kong when I was 9.
I love Hong Kong.
It
We talked about that. It's changed a lot, but
it has.
I bet you were there during a fascinating time.
I was, and then my parents moved back for many more years, actually. So I was there, like during the British colony.
Yeah.
And then my parents moved back there 6 months after the handover in 1997, and it was unbelievable. I mean,
when's the last time you've been to Hong Kong?
A long time now. 2007 maybe.
The last time I went, I think, was 2018.
Okay.
And then all this stuff happened, and I remember thinking, "Oh my gosh," because I really do like Hong Kong.
Yeah.
I was kind of shocked about all the stuff that
Yeah.
happened. That's why I asked, when's the last time you've been back?
Yeah, I have a cousin, actually. Now he lives in Shanghai, but he was in Hong Kong for a while, and during that time, and and he loves China, but he did have some things to say about it. I mean, honestly, it wasn't really. I wasn't so shocked at
You
how.
weren't?
Yeah.
See, I don't. So I hate
Exactly.
saying this because I don't want to sound like I don't like China, but China's not my favorite country. Part of that is because I did a project with their government and I was on their TV. I worked with their government and brought in some innovation into their healthcare system. So I went over with a gentleman named Dr. Fernando Diaz. He's one of our top neurosurgeons. And we helped them throughout China multiple times. And I had to go into even the small villages. And because I'm a female and I look different, and I'm in small villages, and they treated me amazing. But I think the air pollution and all the things really bothered me. Because I run a lot, and I would get up and I would be like, as a kid, I had asthma, and I was like, this is bothering me. I can feel they've got to do something about their environment. I know it's because they have so many people, but it was pretty bad.
So bad. It's so bad. I mean, it was bad enough when I was there, like in the 80s, 83 to 88. And then, but when I went back, and my parents lived in the mid-levels at that point, and I would see people running, I just thought, oh, holy cow, like, this is crazy.
It's crazy. Did you ever go to the hospital while you were in China, or anyone in your family?
No, but my mother almost did from food poisoning.
You know about their system, right? Do you know how their hospital systems work?
It's crazy.
It's crazy. So on the bottom floor, it's basically leveled. So the more money you have, you go up on the floors. But in the bottom, it really was shocking to me to walk in to a room with just cots all over the floor. And I remember going into the bathroom, and it was men and women, and, the holes in the ground.
Yeah.
And no soap.
No soap.
And because it was the bottom floor. And so that was like my first project. I was like, here's what we need to do.
Yeah.
It was really simple. Everyone's like listening to me. I'm a scientist.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we should have soap in the bathroom.
I know, right?
So that's why I asked. You never, I'm sure they would have treated you all like royalty because of, when usually, I don't know, I was treated, like a lot of countries, I was treated like royalty.
It was, I mean, it was an amazing experience. Like, it was really, I mean.
You probably got to have fun, so I never have had fun in China. All my trips have been very orchestrated and controlled every second. I was the only female usually in the environments, which is fine. But it was one time when I was there, the head of their FDA got killed because he had approved a drug. And so I had to go into a discussion about that. And I remember thinking, this is so different. And it's not about, people were very nice to me. I had so many they give gifts a lot.
Yes, they do. They do.
But you probably got to go to like the bars and the nice restaurants and hotels. I didn't. I stayed with the government things.
Well, when my parents were back there.
Yeah.
So I moved back to the U.S. When I was 14. And so I was obviously a little young. But then we moved back, and we actually lived across from Lung Kwai Fong.
Wow.
And so that was a little crazy with the karaoke bands.
Yeah.
Bars and everything. But
I did go to a karaoke bar. Those are interesting. In Japan, they're interesting too. It's really like a whole thing.
It's so serious.
It's so serious. I'm like, oh my gosh.
I mean, my sister and I got booed off the stage. And then this, really amazing karaoke person felt bad for us, and we were backup singers, and we were booed off as backup singers. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Because they're serious about it.
So serious.
I mean, it's like a competition.
I mean, yeah. And I was like, oh, I thought this was supposed to be fun.
No, they take that very seriously.
Yes, they do. So, but yeah, I mean, it was an amazing experience. And I feel like, I mean, aside from the cultural.
Did you get into fashion?
So I was in fashion before we moved there. And then I was really into like there was basically one brand of spray that everyone wore, and an OP, like Ocean Pacific. And
you went to the markets, though, I'm sure, and stuff.
I
have to tell you, I love the markets. That was the part I like, the jewelry.
Yeah.
I mean, I probably shouldn't say this on a podcast, but the jade and the ivory and the
I know.
Just like still when I see pieces in my closet, I don't really wear them because I like it, brings it back to me.
Yeah.
I did love that experience. It's very different.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. And we lived on the south side of the island. We moved to Happy Valley when we first moved there, and then we moved to the south side, and so it was in Chungomkok, and so we would walk, my sister and brother and I, or my friends and I, through the little like shanties to get to like Stanley Village, and it was just amazing. Everyone was just so amazing, and it really was I mean, it taught me just so much humility and just so many things about the world and about people. And
yeah, you're right, because even in like the villages, one of the things that was kind of different for me is the babies, because some of the babies in the villages didn't have diapers because I think they didn't have money, and it was so hot when I was, 3 times I've been there. Every time I was there, it was very hot. Just the time of year I went, and I guess, I don't know, I've always traveled so much, I honestly don't even look up places before I go. Because I just bring jackets and then stuff underneath. But they would hand me, because of what I did, and we were doctors and scientists that were there, and again, I'm the only female, and so they would hand me the babies, and they would use the bathroom on me, and I would never be rude, of course. It was humbling. That's a great word to use. It was humbling to me too, the way they treated me and what I saw, and it was there was a kindness that I think people don't talk about China with the general public.
There really is. Yeah. There really is.
And you got to live that. See, I just visited. I didn't live the life there.
Yeah, it was special. So special.
That had to imprint on you, though, because then you fast forward You didn't get into fashion, did you, or did you?
No, so I moved back for ninth grade, and then my dad, he had quit Kodak for several reasons actually, and he was ready to move on. And then so we moved to New Hampshire, and I went to high school in New Hampshire. And during that time, I knew I always wanted to be in fashion design. And so then fast forward through high school, I mean, there weren't really programs or anything. I mean, I did sewing at my high school and such, but there weren't like kind of weekend programs that you would have in cities or whatnot. And so then when it came down to applying to schools, I applied to, different schools, and then FIT was the last one I got into, and I was like, oh my gosh. So of course I did. And
it's a great school. My daughter is still considering that school.
Yeah, it's a wonderful school.
Yeah.
It's really great. And so so I went there, majored in fashion design, and then worked for a designer straight from school, and got great experience. Her clothes were on the covers of Vogue and like every Marie Claire and every magazine, major magazine. And so I was working with the editors, and during that time, like I never really wanted to be an editor. I never really was a fashion magazine person. I didn't grow up reading magazines.
You weren't like me.
It was really interesting. And I just, but I was always, really into design and fashion and photography and things like that. But yeah, just being a fashion editor never really occurred to me. And then even working with them, coming into the showroom, and then we did the shows in Bryant Park and all that. And I was, I still know all of them basically. And I never wanted to. And then I left that job and moved to London. And I was actually looking for a design job. And a friend of a friend said, well, I don't know anyone who's looking for a design assistant, but Harper's and Queen is looking for a fashion assistant. Would you be interested? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? I'm in London. And
so you never sat there and thought this is a great opportunity?
I just kind of took the lead.
Some people dream about that their whole lives. I'm sure you know that they would love to work for a Vogue or a Glamour or Harper or Vanity Fair. I mean, that's just something that a lot of, like we have Lindsay that's in the office, and that's just a dream for some people, to do things like that.
Right, I know. And, after all of that, did
you like the job?
Absolutely. So I met with Harper's and Queen, and they were like, can you start now? And I was like, oh, okay. And so that was a great experience. I was trying to get my visa, and that didn't work because obviously a fashion assistant is, it's not exactly like Dr. Christina Rahm.
It's easier for scientists. Because they have to approve the visa. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so I wasn't sure where I would be going to after London. I didn't really think I'd be going back to New York, but not because I didn't want to. I just because of the way my life was going, it was just kind of like, okay. And then my father was like, oh no, you're going back to New York. Yeah, it's time. And I was like, okay, sure. So then I came back, and then
how old were you?
I was 23 when I moved over there and started working at Harper's Bazaar, which was Harper's and Queen. And then I moved back right before I turned 25. And so it was kind of like a year and a bit, like a year and a half. And then I started working at Condé Nast. I interviewed actually at a bunch of different magazines, and I ultimately landed with Glamour, and where I stayed for 8 years on staff, and then I went freelance, and then I was on contract for 2 years, which was great because it's like freelance with a paycheck.
Yeah.
And so it was great too, because when you work at Condé Nast, well, when I was working there, you can only work for them. So your portfolio is only that. And so in order to kind of have more of a diverse portfolio, it was the best thing. So, and
did you like it? You still loved it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What did you love the most about it?
I love storytelling.
Yeah.
And I love travel, and I love being able to basically learn things and share them. with everyone, and create and just and be part of an amazing group of people. I mean, it was
All the people you worked with were really good people.
Really great people.
That's interesting to hear that. It looks like when you read those magazines that you just talked about, they give you some information on your editors or your photographers. Like, I don't know, you guys do segments on it, sometimes in the beginning or in the middle or at the end. Everyone always looks so fun.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I mean, it is your life.
Is it competitive?
You're working. It is. It is. It's competitive. But once you're in that, it's like there's this mesh web around you, and you're all the same.
I understand that because pharmaceutical and biotech, especially when I got into biotech, right? But even pharmaceutical, and at the time, it was like a big deal. Like, I first worked for Pfizer, and there's like movies about Pfizer, and I think, what's his name? Gwenenthal, what's the guy that was in Brokeback Mountain? Jake?
Oh, yeah.
He did that movie with Anne Hathaway, I think. And it was
Great
so
movie.
accurate. It was so accurate.
Oh.
And I kind of compare it to Wolf on Wall Street and then
Yes.
that other movie, because but it was a family, so we were competitive, but we really, and I feel like, I got to tell you, the first time since I've left pharmaceutical, we kind of have that here. But we cared about each other. Do you know what I mean? And there were these rules because it's publicly traded, right? So we had this board, but your boss or the people in, especially the higher you went, and the longer you've been there and knew the teams, and I was with a group of people that we basically were brought in to launch different companies and brands, and I was brought in. I ended up being brought in after my third job. They transitioned me. I loved marketing. I loved business development. I loved sales. I loved all of that, but they made me go over to science and clinical and research because of my education.
Okay.
And they needed a female that could go into these meetings that was on the science side with like the CEOs and the presidents that could talk the science, but socially could be available and could be on stage and things like that. I loved it because you're right. It was like kind of my world.
Yeah.
But same thing with me. Don't get me wrong. You were 100% committed to that team.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It was your life.
It was, but honestly, you wanted it to be.
You want it to be because you end up. Well, I don't know how you are. I loved it. Like
Yeah.
and it's interesting because I'm in the nutraceutical business now, and a lot of people, and I really believe in a combination of traditional and natural healing. I hope people start with natural because that's better for their bodies. But I also, of course, understand the need for pharmaceutical and biotech. That was my life for so many years. But it's interesting because a lot of people, because of the controversy around what happened with the pandemic and different things, have anger towards the pharmaceutical industry. But the truth is, most people that work in that industry are truly trying to make a change and to do things positively for the world. It's like any business, like finance. It's the couple of people that aren't.
Right.
That cross that line of worrying just about money and not about people that can ruin everything. And unfortunately, in the pharmaceutical industry, that impacts people's health, right? Your industry, I'm sure it was different, but I would imagine that it was still this environment because you are a team producing something that everyone you have to get along with everyone.
Absolutely. And, we were all one piece of the pie, and we were all working towards the same thing. And it was interesting because you would have people who would come in and they either wouldn't last that long at all or something scandalous would happen. It was just, it was interesting.
Well,
and those were
when you have a world of glamorous people, I'm just being really honest, when you have people that are dynamic, and same thing with pharmaceutical and biotech, and top of their game, right, then you have all that, so you either fit in, and our company's that way right now. So we've developed this team, and we kind of figure out right away if things are going to work or not. And it's not the people that aren't great that come in, but sometimes it doesn't work because it is a lot of work to run teams like that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So everyone watched The Devil Wears Prada.
Yes.
Who was that person? You can't say their name. There had to be people like that, though. That were not, and really, she was great, right? In that movie, I've watched that so many times because it actually reminded me of my industry that I was in.
Yeah.
I always liked people like her in the industry because I always felt like the harder people were on me, the more I learned, and the better I was.
Absolutely, totally.
I had respect for people like that.
Absolutely, and that's the thing. I mean, it comes down to business and having to just be a certain way, and it's not really anything personal necessarily. So
it's not personal. It's they're trying to produce something that everyone's going to have their eyes on. But the industry's probably changed, has it?
It has, and especially
the magazines are thinner now.
I've
noticed. What is going on with that? Every time I go, like I used to buy like the thick Glamour.
Yes.
Is it because people are going online?
Well, there was a lot of that, but also like just with advertising and in general. But now it's starting to, come back and everything. But now there's definitely a balance between like print and digital. I mean, there are some books where they're only digital or they'll come out, a couple times a year. Et cetera, but it's just changing with the times. And
well, the cost of paper is even so much higher.
Right.
I know because of Karen Floyd. Like she's talked to me because hers is she does, and they have theirs at Barnes and Noble and like really nice, places because it's a high quality magazine.
Yeah.
It's not. It's almost like a book. But she said, it changed during the pandemic, and I know that because of us with packaging.
Yes.
Our packaging became so expensive.
Totally. So during the pandemic, I was working with the National Edit. A magazine here, and it was a paper issue.
Yeah.
And the same thing, even the format's a little bit larger, and the paper was thicker, and it just, it affected a lot.
Is that still in print?
It is frozen.
Yeah.
So
hopefully it'll recover because I hate the fact that some of these things that I love have changed. I have to be honest. I like print.
I
can't help it. I'm always on my computer, so it's not that I don't look at digital, but I just love feeling it.
Yeah.
My oldest son, and I were talking about this because he wants to own a bookstore, and I just love feeling the paper and touching the pictures and everything.
Same. I mean, I'm definitely
So, are you doing any of that now?
I am. So since it's been kind of suspended / frozen, I mean, there aren't really a lot of options in Nashville for that. So I've been doing projects with companies and brands and doing styling and different celebrities and things like that, but not exactly what like I was doing, not with publications. Sorry.
That's interesting because we have different people write for us and everything. Because we have a skincare line. What Marty knows, it's hard in this company because we all have so many different roles because we're in so many countries and there's so much going on. Like we're getting ready to launch a new peptide skincare line. Amazing. So we just did a bunch of videos and commercials and things for that. But then we're getting ready to launch a new type of clothing that's like an athletic wear. We partnered with David Dean, and he actually hired the main designer from Lululemon.
Yes.
And David's a great person. Have you met David?
Yes. In fact, I have his digits on my wrist.
Do you? Did you meet him at the house?
I did.
He's a great guy.
He's wonderful.
He'll be there tonight. He's a great person, and we're super excited about it. But we were trying to figure out. I was talking to him yesterday. Do we launch it during the fashion show? Because last year we got about 1 billion views.
Wow.
We had more than I think the president. So it was huge. And this year I think it'll be more. We raised almost $1 million for animal philanthropies throughout the world.
Amazing.
And then this year we're doing the same thing, but we're also picking up more fundraising. Like one of the fundraising events will be for trying to basically help the juvenile system for kids that go in to be incarcerated and stuff like that. The Rahm Foundation, which is one that we support, because my family, we've run that for years. We're raising money, but we really raise money to give away to like other foundations and mentorship programs. But I'd love to somehow incorporate you into that. We think we may put his like leggings under like some of the dresses and some of the attire. Yeah, and we're doing 5 continents. So basically, because we're in 80 countries, we picked 5 continents that we're going to show their clothing.
That's amazing.
Yeah, because we do our own, but then we partner with fashion designers, and it's sustainable. We like to use refurbished, and then we use the process that protects against pollution and 5G and nuclear waste. Yeah,
I mean, it's amazing.
It's a fun story, and I'm going to meet. I met with the CEO of Chanel, and then we're going back to do a women's event. And I love it because all your top brands are interested in that now.
Oh, absolutely. Which is a great thing.
Yeah, it's a great thing. We weren't prepared. My husband committed to Karen to do that fashion show before I had the fashion show line done. So that was like a shock to me. I have to tell you, that put me into a major
because
if you asked me, have you been the most stressed in your life? Well, I'd never done a fashion show. Do you know what I mean? And it was probably one of the most stressful times of my life because I had about 2.5 months to get the scientific process done for the clothes and then design the clothes. And our partners, so we designed some of them ourselves that are beautiful, and then we had other designers helping us that I'm friends with, but then we had to do the process, and it was a lot. Now we've done fashion shows in India and LA. The whole thing for me, though, was to really help be one of the changers in the fashion industry because of the environment.
Yeah.
So it really wasn't from my perspective. I had no idea how hard that was going to be. I've done so many businesses in my career, but adding the fashion line was hard.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just 2.5 months alone just to put a show together.
He had no idea because he's a guy. I mean, Clayton was like, "You can do it. You can do anything." And he goes, "Christina, look at your closet. You have clothes everywhere." I'm like, "That's not what it's about."
That's so funny.
He goes, "You've traveled everywhere." I'm like, "No." So we partnered with an Indian designer. We partnered with one in the Middle East.
Amazing.
So we've done some great stuff, and I love that we have a mission behind it.
I love that too.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean,
but I want you to meet with Lisa Kreitz, who'll be there tonight, and then Joy Smallwood, because we are always looking for people that write and create with us.
Yeah.
Because I know you think I do everything on my own, but I don't. People are always like, "How did you do that?" I'm like, "I didn't."
Yeah.
We have teams of people that are brilliant, and that's why we've been successful. Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, it's truly. I mean,
It's amazing because of the connections now that we have with very influential people. And you can't change the world because not the whole world wants to be changed. But you can impact the world and leave a legacy that's positive. And creatives are a huge part of that. And that's what when I started this, I said my closest friends are creatives, and we have this all the time. They're always like, "Christina, but you're a scientist." I'm like, "You guys are impacting people as much as I am because you have the voice." Here I am behind, honestly, in a lab coat or on the computer writing patents, and they've made, like, Joy Smallwood, she's our photographer, but one of my best friends, and she makes it look pretty to the point that we had one of our top people say, "It looks like you're just bebopping around and doing fashion." And I go, "Well, first of all, fashion isn't easy." And what I've learned too is and I'm not a socialite, I'm a scientist, but even the women that I know that are, that's hard too.
Yeah, it definitely is, for sure. I mean, I just, when I left design and jumped the fence, basically, I mean, and really haven't looked back. I mean, I love it because of what you just said. It's like making an impact, and you're kind of taking all these things that you're finding and learning, and then you're sharing it with people, and they're listening and they're taking it in, and it's so impactful. It's an amazing feeling. And
what's amazing if we can share the story right, which is why people like you are so important, because we just said this in my office. Marty wasn't there, but there's a bunch of people in my office, and they said, "Christina, you are the worst person in this company to sell anything." and I go, I can't sell myself, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm talking about myself.
Right.
And it's hard for me. And I get, if I'm really honest with everyone, I get very uncomfortable. I don't like it. I really don't like talking about my education. I don't mind at all talking about working in all these countries because I've loved it, right?
Right, yeah.
But talking about myself and the patents and the science, it's really hard for me. I don't like it. And it's a lot easier when other people are doing it and we actually do better. And that's something people don't understand. You know, I really look at myself more as a humanitarian that's a scientist.
Yeah.
But that story, which you're a storyteller, right? And you know how to tell the story. It impacts people. So Lisa, who you'll meet tonight, just got honored by the UN for being having one of the top inventions.
Amazing.
And I've known her since third grade, but probably since we were born. We grew up, and she was my big sister in sorority in college, and our mothers were friends, and we've had this history. But she was in media and writing. She does some of our writing right now, and she was like a news reporter for, some time, and then converted it. And she's like me. She's not great. Like I don't even know if our office hears a lot about what she does as an inventor. She basically had an idea for women in breast cancer, and her brother's an engineer, so he designed the patents. But she was responsible for taking that all over the world to help people.
It's amazing.
I know. Is that not amazing? Like now they converted it to help with people that have prostate cancer.
Wow.
Because after she had a double mastectomy, and there was no way to take a shower, and because she was a female, you have a lack of research in that area, and no one had come up with anything that could protect the body during that. So she invented something.
That's amazing.
Isn't that amazing? Like she took a really hard situation in her life and made it good for other people. You'll love meeting her.
That.
But if I could somehow incorporate you, I don't know if you're interested or if you even have time, but I'd love to have you involved in it.
Oh my gosh, I would.
We're successful based on who we collaborate and partner with and work with, because otherwise we aren't.
Yeah.
So I'm very humbled by that, and I acknowledge it 100%. So we're always looking. When I met you, I was like, oh my gosh, maybe she'll do something with us.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm thinking this. I'm like, holy cow. Like the more I was like, wow, this is.
Well, let me say this. It's a lot on my shoulders with the fashion brand. Because despite what my husband thinks, I design in clothes because I do have to be involved in that process.
Right.
I'm trying to get everything done for this fashion show in New York right now. But I have these two, so we have these events, and then I'm gone all the time. Like I will leave again. I will leave Saturday night, come back Monday morning, and leave again Tuesday afternoon.
Wow.
And then, anyway, it's just a series of events. So having someone, and we have a wonderful individual, Lindsay, that helps with it, but having someone that understands that industry would help her and help me.
Yeah.
Because it's not that simple. And our brand, the Root brands, our biggest seller are baby blankets to protect babies. And I really need to bring those into Saudi Arabia, because that's what I was asked to do that. And we just haven't done it yet into the hospital system. But we do have a couture brand, and we do have basic clothing that goes throughout Root. And now we are really trying to work at creating the Mercy Dupree Clothing Air's actual website as a standalone. And then eventually we will open a store. Right. But when I say all those steps, my husband just hears, okay, this is what we're going to do. And I think, oh my gosh, this is a lot. Like the other day he was like, Christina, we should just open a store. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
He wants to open a coffee store. He wants to open a smoothie store. Clothing's different.
Right.
Clothing is not, it's a lot easier to open a coffee truck, I'm being really honest, and take it around, which we're going to do because of Rahm roast. But clothing is a different animal, and it's not that easy. So Joy Smallwood, who you met, that was the photographer, she did a brand for 5 years. And that brand now is very successful, but that first 5 years was really tough, and that's typical. And I knew that, by the way, going into it. I look at every brand we go into, because I'm a scientist and because I've worked for so many companies. I look at it like, okay, I'm getting ready to go to college for 4 to 6 years. I'm going to spend a lot of money because I don't know this industry, and I've got to break into this industry. So I've never had an illusion of how easy it was going to be. But I didn't completely comprehend how different it was from like pharmaceuticals
Yeah.
and nutraceuticals, but it fits along with our skincare brand as well.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, we'll have to talk more about it later, but just
Yeah.
having experts in that when we don't right now would be extremely helpful to the
Oh my
brand.
gosh, I would absolutely love to.
Yeah.
I mean,
So there's a reason you were invited this podcast.
I love
I
that.
have ulterior motives.
Well, what is the saying? There are not coincidences
There's
in
not
life,
coincidence.
right?
And
So-
listen, anyone I'm really good friends with, I think would say that. Do you know what I mean? Because you have to pay attention to what I always believe that God or the universe puts stuff in front of you,
Yeah.
and you either choose to see it and accept it, or and be blessed by it or thankful, or you just ignore it.
Totally.
And I don't ignore it
Yep.
for many reasons, but no, I don't. I think
Yeah.
that's if someone asked me what the secret was to what I've done in my life, I would say that the passion, the mission, listening and paying attention and hard work, you know.
Right, yeah.
But you do, because one person can't do everything. It takes a group of people.
And
really
also,
does.
I feel like it's, it's definitely more fun.
It's more fun because
To
who
put it
wants to
mildly.
do stuff on their own? I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love, teams.
And it's hard because right now we're being invited to a lot of stuff that has to do with fashion. And juggling, meeting with the Ferragamo family versus meeting with the Prime Minister that has to do with health. They're both very important. But when they're at the same time, sending someone else for me, that's why we were having the discussion in the office. It's just essential right now because you have to sleep.
Right.
I mean, you can't, this. So one last thing before we end, traveling's hard.
I was going to say, I'm like, I want your travel secrets because
I have
wow.
5 million points on
I
Delta.
mean-
They picked us up in a Porsche and drove us to the other plane last time we landed in Atlanta because I have so many points. But it's really not a compliment. I want to tell you, it's fun at first, but when you're not home at all and you don't get to sleep, it's not. And sometimes I'm like, I just want to be in my bed. I just want to be. And then I have this other thing, and I don't know how you were about travel, but sometimes I'll go to a hotel, and I finally get used to that hotel.
Yeah.
And I don't want to leave the hotel because now I've got to get on another plane and go somewhere else.
Yeah.
But it looks glamorous, but it's not always glamorous.
Right. Yeah.
I'm sure you guys experienced that in the magazine, like traveling and what you guys did.
I mean, we traveled. I mean, there were times where we would have 4 shoots back to back, and we're talking Morocco. We'd stop in Paris for a cover. Then we'd have like a night back in New York and go to Brazil, So it was
That's
kind
my
of
schedule, and that's a lot. When you start going into 3.5 weeks, I always tell people, cut me off at 10 days. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But I want that 7 days. I start thinking, I want to see my kids, or I want to go home to see our dogs.
Yeah.
And by 3.5 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too, because I mean, yeah.
Duquesne, I can't quit. She's famous, and we're talking about glamour.
Famous. Wait, famous. Wait, there's a mirror here.
No, I know we are ending, but she's really important. They break the segments up in 20 minutes.
Okay.
And so then we'll probably have to do a couple with this particular. We'll do 2 at this one.
Well, you can cut a lot of mine.
No, we're not going to cut what you said. We're not cutting what you said because it's very interesting. There will be women watching this just to hear what you have to say. And that's why I wanted to end it with things look glamorous or they look great, but it's not always what it seems. It's a lot harder.
It is, but yeah. But when you have that passion,
When you have that passion, it's worth it.
There's nothing that will stop.
So you don't mind the travel.
And maybe it's because, I mean, literally, my father came home one day and was like, with a globe, and was like, how would you feel if we moved to Hong Kong? And then 2 days later, we were like moving to Hong Kong, and it was 3 days before Christmas. And so I don't know if it really had to do with that and just kind of moving around a lot, but I could live out of a suitcase, which sounds so crazy.
No, my mom calls me, when I was little, my mom called me her little gypsy.
Yeah.
And she always called me her little gypsy. And she was like, you just go everywhere. You want to go everywhere, you're going to go everywhere. But I have to tell you, I have 4 kids, and they're not like me. So I've taken them with me all over the world. And if they get an option, they don't usually want to go.
That's interesting. Yeah. So
it is.
I have 3 daughters, and they that was the one thing I was like, they are traveling as soon as
Yeah.
they're able. And they all, minus my youngest, who is 10 now, but the other two definitely have the travel bug. And they are like they're little gypsies. They're like, they're
That's
like, when are we
awesome.
going away? It's pretty fun. But
I don't know what I did wrong. I'm like,
except for everything right.
What did I do wrong? Because mine aren't like that. No.
But I mean, I don't know. I mean, my brother, I'm one of three, I'm the oldest, but my brother, when we moved to New Hampshire, and we're not from there either, but my brother, he just stayed put. Like, not in New Hampshire, but he moved to Boston and went to school nearby, but he just, But
Yeah.
he does now, he's traveling for work and all that, and he likes it, but he didn't get that.
I
same
think
bug.
part of the reason with my kids is they've seen so much and done so much. They're kind of like, I've done that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They do want to go to Japan, all of them.
Yeah.
And they'd like to go to Australia, so I need to plan those trips.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, they're going to come in and make a stop.
Amazing.